if you think about what is the greatest case study in the world ever, right? And we rank the top 10 greatest case studies. There's a lot of them, right? What the case studies could be. But one of the greatest case studies in the world is how this, group of 50-something men came together who were not happy about what was going on in Britain, and they started this idea in 1776, and they wrote out the Federalist Paper, the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera. And then that went and turned into this behemoth of a country that positively impacted the world, technology that's being used around the world, and it validated that the best economical system in the world is capitalism. If it allowed people to go out there and are willing to work and how big of a dream they wanted to build and how big of a life they wanted to build, you kind of leave them alone. If they put a limit on how big of a YouTube channel you could make, you can't have a YouTube channel over 10 million. I mean, you wouldn't have PewDiePie, you wouldn't have Mr. Beast. Maybe you'd be happy if you didn't have these guys.
I'm not too familiar with those guys. But let me just say this, though. But if what you were saying was true, right? I mean, if we were really just going to base it, well,
it is true.
I mean,
this is the greatest case study ever.
Well, but if you really want to look into if you're really looking at that case study, right, you got to say this country, and, it is what it is, but the idea that this country was just simply capitalism. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of free labor that was used to harvest a crop that made Northerners wealthy, Northern financiers wealthy, shipping magnates wealthy, and it made, obviously, the plantation owners wealthy. Now, we would never advocate that you should have slavery today.
Of course we would.
But so to go back and
say... But wait a minute. You can't say something like that and give the black eye to the country, because that was done in practically every country in the world. So it was a very... but here's the part.
I don't want to debate the issue of,
where I would say with that.
Was slavery uniquely bad here versus anywhere else?
That's not the point. No, the point I'm trying to make to you is, if that was accessible everywhere... Okay.
Well, no, it wasn't.
In most countries, they had a form of slavery at one point.
Well, but they also didn't have the confluation between slavery, cheap labor, and the fertile ground to grow cotton. For instance, let me just give you another example of this, because you really, if you're going to talk about American history, and this is not about America's particularly uniquely evil because their slavery was uniquely worse than someone else. Granted, we had chattel slavery, which was not as necessarily popular other places, but that doesn't matter. The bottom line is, if you're going to make an assessment on how this country grew, put aside the feelings of ego or hurt feelings that it makes me feel bad as an American, whatnot. If you want to just look at it coldly, all right, you look at something like the Trail of Tears. The reason why we had the Trail of Tears and killed all of those Native American people is because plantation owners in Georgia and Alabama wanted the fertile ground that had been given to those native tribes, because it was fertile ground. They could grow more cotton there. When we basically eliminated those Native Americans, sent them on the Trail of Tears, the number of slaves grew exponentially, because these plantation owners got this raw material, which was the fertile ground. They brought in free labor to harvest it. The hardest part of cotton, of dealing with cotton, is the harvesting of it. I mean, this is part of the system. And, I'm not saying that America is uniquely evil because of it or uniquely great about it.
You are saying that.
I'm not. You're saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just looking at the cold...
I'm saying the greatest case study.
Patrick, I'm just looking at the cold, hard facts. And if you're going to look at it as a case study,
do you judge it?
You have to make the assessment that is part of it. Free labor helps your business.
How do you judge a great idea succeeding? How do you judge a great idea succeeding? What's your way of judging a great idea?
What's my way of...
How do you, let's just say we come up with an idea, okay? And by the way, the idea could be as small as, hey, moving forward, Sam, I think what we need to do with your YouTube channel
What's the goal?
What do you mean, what's the goal?
Well, if I'm going to measure a great idea, I want to know what the goal is. Because I feel like, here's the thing, Patrick.
No.
And I don't mean this, I mean this with all due respect.
Yeah.
But I feel like your assessment of a great idea or of a great thing in this is measured in how many dollars it
No, I never said that. I never said that.
How do you, no, I'm not. All of your examples are
sort
of like that.
Can you play along instead of assuming? Just play along instead of assuming and jump to a conclusion. I'm going to give you the respect. Give me the respect as well.
Sure.
How do you judge a great father?
How do I judge a great father?
Yeah, how do you say he's a good? Are you a good father?
I try to be.
Okay, I try to be. So I don't know if I am. I don't know if I am. Quite frankly, you and I are not going to know if we're good fathers, I think, for another 30 years. You know, we'll find out if we're a good father.
Well, what would be the measure? Like, if you want, like what is the metrics in which you measure?
No problem.
The outcome?
So let me ask you this way, okay? To me, how do we judge a great show on YouTube? How do we judge a great restaurant? How do you judge a great, a great movie? How do we judge a great party? How do we judge a great nightclub? How do we judge any of those things?
I would love to do this. You write down how you judge a great show on YouTube, and I write down how I judge a great show on YouTube, and restaurant, movie, and I guarantee it's going to be different.
Okay. So how do you judge a great restaurant?
A great restaurant, I'm not so great when it comes to food, but I would say like a great movie for me is a function of like maybe how much emotion I feel or how many insights I get from it. And are they doing something that impacts the cultural language of film? I mean, that's the way I would judge a great movie.
I would say one of the best ways to judge what country's done it the best around the world is how many people can't wait to go there. And if you judge it based on that, America's kicking everybody's tail. I'm an Iranian guy. I'm from Iran. You look at the amount of immigrants. I went through a refugee camp to come here, dude. My parents got a divorce. My mom's in town last night. Her and I were having a conversation till late at night. We sacrificed a lot. They sacrificed their marriage, language, barrier, all just to come to America, okay? My mom and dad never said.
What was the situation in Iran?
It's a pretty shitty situation in Iran, but also but we had a lot of other options.
Same in Honduras, Nicaragua.
But we had 195 other options. Why did we come here? Why didn't we go to Russia? Why didn't we go to China? Why didn't we go to Venezuela? Why don't we go to Cuba? Why don't we go to Germany? Why did we come to America? Why is America leading 4x number 2? 40 plus million people that want to come here. So you could say, well, it's because that's not really a right way to measure it, because if you think about this, that, why do so many people want to come to America?
I think because there is a promise. I don't know if it's kept. In many instances it's not, but there's a promise of more economic opportunity. Certainly, depending on where you come from, it's pretty clear. Like, I mean, if you're coming from Honduras, there's more economic opportunity. It's also theoretically safer, right, than Honduras is. Many of those people also have relatives that come here. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons. You've got also a tremendous mix of people here. So there's a community. There's an Iranian community.
Why though? Why are they coming here though?
Well, why did they come here?
Because it's a lot easier drive to Russia than it is to drive to U.S. I can't even drive to you. It's a longer flight.
Well, I think it's
expensive.
The promise of
why
our
not
democracy, too.
Got it. So because of what the founders created, a system where I could come here as an atheist. When I came here, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in a God. I didn't think God exists. If a God really exists, why would we have all these wars in Iran? That makes no sense to me. Good for you, weak people, that you think you need to go to. I don't need it. And then later on in life, at 25 years old, I made a different decision. But nobody judged me if I was an atheist when I was in the army. Nobody said anything to me. I was Iranian. I went in the army. Yeah, we had some jokes. We made fun of each other. Truly, like people made fun of each other, but we got along.
I feel like you misinterpreted why I was explaining that how the economic power was built in this country. I'm not saying that America is bad. That's not my point.
Are you saying this is the greatest case study of a country in the world ever?
The greatest case study?
Yeah,
like, what do you mean?
Meaning that when it comes down to showing opportunity, no other country has done it better than America has, based on what it was founded on.
I mean, you could argue that, like, our mobility numbers, certainly at times. At times, it's met that promise.
Fair.
That's why I want to go back to that tax rate, because the time where we had the most mobility in our society, now granted, we still, in the 50s and 60s, if you were black, you didn't have the same civil rights, obviously. I mean, you couldn't engage in commerce in the same way. You couldn't,
Country's always going to make progress. We keep getting better.
Sounds like you want to make America great again, but just tax purposes.
Well,
wise.
Sam is a
I just want to go
Trump guy.
when I think about the greatest expansion of the economy for the most amount of people, it was during that era.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.